Hello.
Hello AOS fans!
It's the Agents of Sigmar.
And in this video we're going to tell you why Warhammer Underworlds is awesome!
Again.
Now, we could talk about the variety of cool models.
But we won't.
We could talk about how easy it is to switch factions.
But we shan't.
We could talk about its quick play time.
But we don't want to.
We could even talk about how awesome the players are.
But we're not going to.
Well, not now. We will in a future video.
No. And we might touch on a few of those subjects in this little spouting of nonsense as we
Spouting
progress.
of nonsense, how dare you?
I'm sure the people, the boys and girls at home all know what we're here for.
Dare you.
And it's random nonsense all the way to the end.
What I want to talk about in this video is just how interesting Warhammer Underworlds is to play.
Yeah.
There's a variety of play styles, and I just think it's fabulous. And I do think the more I play it, and the more it evolves, it is Games Workshop's best game.
Yeah.
By quite some margin now, I would say.
Yeah,
I know different people have different things that they like in a game, so it's very subjective.
Very subjective and very personal opinions, but as ours is recorded and put on YouTube, it's actually fact. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. I was struck when preparing for our recent tournament.
By a brick.
Yeah, I was struck when I was preparing for the recent tournament we did at the Bad Moon Cafe, which is a separate video about, which you can go and look at if you want to. I was struck by, I think I was struck actually when we were playing our practice game with your amazing objective deck and my Thrice False Discord with all the magic and the sort of it tends to sit back and you can play offensively. And I was struck by how many different ways there are to play the game, and how the Nemesis style or the Nemesis format enables you to access those different play styles relatively easy with a fairly minimal outlay cost.
Yes, yeah, because you buy a warband, you buy a deck, or you buy a starter box, you've already got several combinations within that. Yeah,
absolutely. So you kind of like if you buy one warband and two rivals decks, you've immediately got a different experience going on for those two things, and that's just with those two bits. And of course, there are like 50 warbands, and then some of them are quite hard to get hold of now if you're a new player. But they've probably got 20 warbands at any one time you can get hold of and play. And if you can go and buy them, I don't know how many rivals decks there are, but let's say there's 8 off the top of my head. You can combine that in. I don't know what the combinations are. I need my mathematician son here to tell me, but there's a
20 warbands, 8 decks. There's 160 different combinations. Some you're obviously not going to pick. You're not going to take a fighty warband. You're not going to take that with Force of Frost.
No.
And then not be able to cast anything or be reliant on certain things. But there's a large combination of options out there to make things very different.
Yeah, and obviously in Nemesis you've got all the different cards that interact. So even a single rivals deck, when combined in Nemesis way, can produce different results depending on which card you choose from it. And I really love that.
Yeah.
But it's fairly well contained.
Yes.
Which I really like. And that makes it really difficult to anticipate what people are going to bring. Now, I know there is always a meta.
Yes.
And so you could say, like for our man who won the World Championships, he's very good at predicting the meta, and you probably could know, even though he is good at predicting the meta, I think a lot of people would say, oh well, yes, Domitans with Force of Frost is the strongest.
Yeah.
But on the plus side, GW now, they seem to be really, really on fixing if there is a problem or something is becoming persistent in the meta. They will change it. So Domitans needed a nerf, Ephraim needed a nerf, and they did it, and they've done it fairly quickly. In recent days gone by, we've been waiting months and months and months, but this was completely unexpected in January. There was this change, and it's made a real difference. The Arenae, I think a lot of people love the Arenae. They were underperforming, and they've given them a little boost.
Before that was Velmorn and Grimcracks as well. They were both a little bit low on the scale, so they've given them a little bit of a shunt, and hopefully that helps. Yeah,
so I really like that engagement of the company. I think helps you put Underworld in a better position than it's ever been in before. Yeah. So at the recent Bad Moon tournament, there were 3 Thrice-Fold Discord decks. I think I made this joke in the previous video, but there was Thrice-Fold Discord.
One more video and you can have Thrice-Fold Discord jokes.
That's brilliant, we'll go home now. Yeah,
thank you.
That was totally ad-libbed, that joke. I'm impressed. I know that at least 2 of them, I don't know what the third one was because I know Laura took one, but I know that mine and hers needed piloting in completely different ways.
Yep.
So that kind of goes back and forth what we were saying about the different play styles that the different Rivals decks offer. But that's just such a nice thing about the game. But it makes it really easy to get into the game because you just, like we said earlier, you buy 1 warband, 2 decks, and you've immediately got a totally different way of playing.
There was somebody asked a question on Facebook earlier today, in fact, about Sepulchral Guard. They were going, how do I use them? Because I always find that I lose a load of glory from all my fights getting killed and blah, blah, blah. And loads of people came in and gave lots of really different advice about how to pilot them. So some people were going on about the objective holding side, other people were going on about the aggro side, other people were talking about how you would use them without having to rely on the Warden or capitalise on the Warden, that kind of thing. And nobody was giving bad or wrong advice, but there's a lot of different ways to play them. So, and a lot of warbands have that flexibility on depending on the deck you take. Depends on how you play them.
And the game seems to be in a good place right now with this kind of different strengths and weaknesses within that. So your deck was very strong in certain ways, and it destroyed my Thrice-Fold Discord deck.
Yep.
But when you played John, he beat you with his Banshees.
Yep.
And so I was really worried when I played my Thrice-Fold Discord against John's Banshees, and I thrashed him.
Yep.
And I was a little bit lucky, as usual, but it didn't stand up. So you've got that really nice paper, scissors, stone thing going on, which is what I think, I'm not really a big game designer, but I think that's what collectible card game designers aim for in there, because that's what you need, and that keeps the meta from getting stale, because there isn't one way to win, because there's something that counters that.
And it was the same thing in the tournament we went to, that you got beaten by the Head Crackers players, and I beat them without really any challenge, and there was that kind of thing again. So I think the trick is then finding a warband and a deck combination that you can stand a good chance against everybody with, but you maybe not going to be annihilating anybody with it, but you're going to do well.
Yes.
That kind of thing. So I think that's a really good, it's a very fine line to tread, but I think the community does well at not always just going, oh, this is the best option, that's what I'm going to take.
I think it's because it's so easy to change it up.
Yeah.
So if you go like Nigel, who's taken his really strong deck, he wants to win the tournament, and he's got loads of other really great, he was telling me about them, loads of other really great deck ideas for more casual setups, and that's a really nice thing that you can, if you play Warhammer Age of Sigmar, you've pretty much, unless you've got absolutely shed loads of money and time, you've pretty much got to choose one, maybe 2 factions, and that's what you've got to play for a good year, 2 years, because the entire time and money investment is huge. In Underworlds,
same with 40k, and same across systems. You're like, if you want to get into one, you're probably not going to be doing 40k and AOS and this and that, and it's just
If you want to play Underworlds, the outlay is not small, because there are a lot of warbands. You can still spend a lot of money, but you can keep it small if you want to. And not only that, is you haven't got to invest as much time, because you can play 3 games.
Yeah.
You could potentially play 3 games with 3 different warbands in the time it would take you to play 1 game of AOS with 1 army.
Possibly even more than 3 games, depending on how well or how fast you can play. But and the other thing I really like with how it is right now is that the Nemesis format, a way of playing with the Rivals decks being separate to the warbands, is we've lost that card chasing from Championship days, whereas like every release that came out you had to buy, whether you really wanted the warband or not. There were so many warbands because there were potentially cards in there that would be really good for you.
Ready for action!
Who wanted the Chosen Axis, but who wanted ready for action?
Yeah, that's the way you have to put it.
That's the way it goes. Yeah. So the fact they've got rid of that now, and that you can see a warband and go, I don't really like ghosts, I'm not going to buy the Headsman's Curse, I don't like Skaven, I'm not going to buy Skabbix or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think I'd buy the Stab Lads, even though I do quite like the scheme mechanic.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like the models, and there's so many now.
Exactly, there's so many, and there's so much choice, and you can just buy the ones you like and play with the ones that you like the look of, and hopefully then find one that works with your play style and you get better with it.
So I think that makes the game perfect for club nights, because you can have a bit of fun, but also it is a very competitive, it's a fun competitive game without being too serious, which I really like, and I really do think it's the best game that Games Workshop have designed.
I think so. One thing that is interesting is that obviously, because it's such a short game, you can play a lot of games in a day, so you can do a tournament in a day and you can play 5 games, and it's a busy day, but it's not too long, like from 10 till 5 or something like that. It's not terrible. But I do find it funny that in every game I played in the tournament, I noticed that my heart rate was up in every single game. And quite often I noticed that my opponents, if they weren't sweating, their hands were shaking.
It's exhausting.
And it's ridiculous.
It's exhausting. A, you've got to be social.
Yeah.
B, you've not got to cheat.
Yeah.
You can accidentally
That's
cheat.
very tempting.
You can accidentally cheat quite easily, and you've got to be really on that. And I think you've
there's
got to
also
try and
just
respond to what your opponent is doing. I think, yeah.
And there's also that adrenaline thing of like, I've got to win, I want to win this, I'm really hoping they don't do this thing, or I really hope I can do that thing. And it gets your heart rate up, it gets gets the excitement going and everything. But it's a very short-lived, the game's very quick. You can probably play it in half hour, 45 minutes, and it's just a nice quick burst. Whereas things like AOS and 40k, for me anyway, they just feel like a war of attrition.
It is a bit of a
who
grind.
gives up first.
It's a grind. Not
army-wise, just players.
And I feel with those games, and it may be unfair, but I feel with those games, it's the person who manages to remember their buffs better that wins the game. Now that may be unfair because I think they have done some work on objective play and that kind of thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
The game a bit more tactical. But that's whenever I've played it, that's all I've always felt like it's who can maximise their buffs and who can actually remember them on the day.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a little bit of that in Underworlds because you still can forget to put cards or use cards when you put them on.
Or reactions.
It feels it's just because everything is written in front of you and you put it on the things.
Yeah.
It's just that much easier to remember what on earth's going on.
And I think that's another thing for me which makes Underworld so much better than any other game, is that the negative play experience is much smaller in Underworlds. There's less gotcha moments in Underworlds because generally you can sit across from your opponent and go, oh, what are you taking? Oh, the stab lads. Oh, what's their special rules then? Oh, here's their stat cards. You can literally see them.
You can see them and you can see what cards they've had in front of them. So
exactly.
You can forget. I did have an occasion where I charged somebody forgetting that I couldn't actually kill them because they had a buff on them. But it's not like, well, now I'm going to do this because you can't. And that you do have reaction cards, so I guess you could say that's similar.
But the reaction cards don't tend to break it as much.
No, and I think because it's shorter lived, if that does happen, you don't feel as bad about it because you haven't spent the last 3 weeks painting the army.
Exactly.
And carting it there and all that kind of stuff.
You don't find quite so often that your opponent's going to suddenly go, well, I've got this unit and they've got this character in, which means I get this and that, which means I'm rolling 50 dice with 2+ to hits, and every 6 gives me another hit, and I can re-roll ones, and. You might get in a situation where you go, I've got a character and they've got an extra wound and damage is -1. But it's a slower build-up for those kind of things. And like you say, even if you do have one of those games where like you just get absolutely paddled, you can move on very quickly. Go, well, all right, let's play something else now. You can play a different warband this time and I'll play a different warband or something like that. Yeah.
So I'm hoping, the game seems in a very strong place at the moment. I think it's really good. And I'm hoping that the tournament scene will get bigger and more people will play. We're running a tournament down here and we're running a club night to try and get people involved.
Certainly
do
be
check
doing
out our Facebook
part
page
to try and expand things.
for information about that. Maybe we'll put a link in there. And if you do want to hear more of this lovely chat, then do consider joining our Patreon, where we do talk about it on our Patreon Discord all the time, talking Underworld stuff. And then if you do support us, we can then make more videos like this.
Yep. So do let us know in the comments below, what are your favourite things about Underworlds? What is it about Underworlds that makes it the best game for you? Or what is it about Underworlds that makes it not the best game for you if you're one of those people?
The best thing about Underworlds
is the box. Actually, it's the boards inside the box.
So I hope you enjoyed this, and obviously the best thing about Underworlds is the people.
Yes, I think every game I've played in Underworlds, I've never had a bad opponent.
Yeah. So if this hopefully has tempted you to come and play Underworlds, do let us know, because we'd love to know if you're interested in playing, and we'll see you somewhere, whether it be on social media or in another video about the game or a different game. We'll see you soon. Bye.